Bienvenue à tous. Welcome to the interview here on France 24. Our guest today is a writer who more than once has defied definition. Christopher Hitchens is British, but American. A leftist, perhaps, who speaks out for the right. Some say he sows confusion wherever he lets his pen wander. Others say, read him. He'll challenge everything you believe in. Christopher, thanks you very much for joining us in our studio here in Paris. Your book, God is Not Great, it has been published in English for some time. We have it in our hands now in French. A great many people, of course, in France know your work extremely well. Judging by the title, God perhaps the target in this book, or is it more the people who do things in the name of God?
Well put. I mean, yes, faith is the target, really. The willingness of people to be credulous, to take things without evidence, to inflate their own sense of themselves by claiming to know things they can't really know, and the willingness of more cynical people to exploit faith and to use it for perverted purposes.
You say lots of things that will enrage those who believe. All of these are on record. I mean, is it true that you think people who believe in God basically are misled?
Well, either have been misled or are deceiving themselves. It's a delusion that can arise in an individual breast or heart, or it can be planted there. That's why religious people, on the whole, want to get control of education, as we see all the time in the United States. Constant struggle. Get hold of them in the classroom. You don't have much of a chance if you don't do that. It's why you hear people referring to, I think disgracefully, Muslim children or Jewish children or Catholic or Protestant children, as if this had all been decided for them before they could make up their own minds.
So for you, is religion the root of problems or the source of people's inspiration, good or evil?
There would be cruelty and violence and warfare, even if there was no religion, though it's very hard to imagine the human species without religion. What I mean to say is the religious part of our brain, of our makeup, is part of the less highly evolved bit. We now know this very well. We are a primate species. We are half a chromosome away from being chimpanzees. I sometimes think that it shows, even with magnificent specimens like ourselves, it can be detected. That religion is the bit that makes that clear. It belongs to the superstitious, fearful childhood of the race. And what we have to do is, we can't get rid of it, and we shouldn't try. We can't repress it, we shouldn't try. But we could outgrow it, maybe make it a private belief.
I mean, what's very clear in the book is that there's a cynicism about religion. Is it about one religion in particular, or all?
All of them. I mean, my daughter goes, for example, to a Quaker school in Washington. Indeed, she goes to school with the daughters of President Obama and the granddaughters of Vice President Biden. And it's a Quaker school which teaches very elaborate, okay values like ecology, pacifism, feminism, human rights, civil rights, all this. Obviously, I don't say that being a Quaker is the same as being a member of Mokhtar Assada's militia. But they do have one thing in common. They're willing to take things on faith. They're willing to prefer faith to reason. And I think that surrender is a very, very bad one always. Currently, we're threatened with theocracy, the attempt actually to make this into a form of rule. Everywhere from Russia, where the Russian Orthodox Church has become the big accomplice of Mr. Putin's KGB-type party, wanting a religious state monopoly. Very bad development, by the way, to the attempt by the mullahs in Iran to get hold of a thermonuclear weapon. So you get apocalyptic ideas and messianic weaponry, or do I mean the other way around? Jewish settlers trying to bring on the Messiah by stealing other people's land in Palestine. Al-Qaeda in Mesopotamia, the Taliban recrudescence. These are frightening developments. And trying to stultify American schoolchildren in order to teach them pseudoscience at public expense. So, there's the reason for the success, if I can call it that, of my book, the impact, I'd better say, more modestly, is I think a lot of people have had enough of this.
But when you see what happens in Gaza, when you see what happens in the Middle East, and hear the ongoing developments and the problems of trying to create a roadmap towards peace, are you saying that if religion was taken away from that, it would be achievable?
I very nearly would say that about the Israel-Palestine dispute. Essentially, that's a national dispute between two nationalisms over land. It's something anyone can understand. But because it takes place in the Holy Land, and because the parties of God, though they're minority parties still on both counts, have a veto, it's made insoluble. The whole world wants a two-state solution, or did until recently. The UN wants it, the US wants it, the EU wants it. Most American Jews want it. Most Israeli Jews would certainly settle for it. The PLO is in favor of it. Why can't we get it? Because the parties of God won't allow it. Because the Jewish and the Muslim parties both say, God gave this land only to one of us. Now, I hate to break it to them. They're both wrong. God doesn't do real estate deals.
Okay.
And it's just as well he does not.
Can I push you on
But
your...
we're hostages to this. And this isn't, I'm glad you laugh. I mean, I don't know whether I'm trying to make you laugh or cry, but
I don't know which one to take.
This is a quarrel that could go nuclear on us. It's not the only one that could, involving
I know some
Messiah.
reaction that we've had from viewers. For instance, once I said this, the whole issue began in 1948 with the entrance of Jewish people into what was Palestine. And I got an email from Jerusalem saying, don't you understand, this goes back 1,000 years and it's our right to be there. And that was from an extreme Jewish viewer.
Well, there have always been Jewish people in Palestine. That can be proved archaeologically, but it doesn't give them an exclusive right to expel other people from it either. I mean, the coexistence is what's required.
I'd like to ask you about your citizenship, because obviously you were born in Britain, but now you're an American citizen.
Yes.
How do you kind of square that circle? Because obviously it's a nation which is led traditionally by very religious, very believing people. It seems to go against a little bit what your philosophies might be.
Answering your question in reverse, not dodging it, our new president, I'm practically sure, is not a believer. I mean, in the book that he wrote before he realized he was going to run for president, which is a good test, he writes about his very convincing way that his mother explained to him that religion was essentially baseless. He later explains that if you're going to be in politics in Chicago, you'd better have a church to go to. That's a different point from faith. He made a very, very secular, highly secular inaugural address, and he's made some very interesting remarks since then about the dangers of establishing faith in politics. But generally, you're right. Though America's much less religious than most people believe, it's pretty religious. I took out papers of citizenship because of my solidarity with America against theocracy. I mean, as it happens, this quite religious country has been the one to take on the Taliban and Al-Qaeda and similar forces around the globe. Maybe without wishing to, but in fact doing so. And I wanted to show that I identified with that.
And is that how you justify supporting, say, the war in Iraq? Because obviously, if you read your history, having been at one point very much on the left of political thinking,
yes.
It now seems that in supporting Bush and going into Iraq, that will put you very squarely on the right.
I would say not, because if you look at the drapeau, the flag in my lapel, which is that of the Iraqi Kurds, almost all of my Iraqi Kurdish friends are old leftists, old strugglers against fascism. The Iraqi left, non-Kurdish, Arab Iraqi left, likewise, long struggle against Saddam Hussein. My solidarity with Lagos in Iraq is the main reason why I took the position that I did. After all, it was Clinton and Gore who said, we will have to take out Saddam Hussein. It was the British Labour Party that first said there'll have to be a confrontation with him under Tony Blair in 1999, long before Bush was elected. And it's the extreme right, not just in France, but in England and in the United States, the Pat Buchanan isolationist right wing that opposes the war. So it isn't really a flat-out left-right issue, but to the extent that it's left, the duty of the left is solidarity with its Iraqi comrades. And that's one thing I can say I've done, I think.
You look British, you sound British, but you're American now, as you say. The thing that gets me, I suppose, is how does someone who is British become American? Because very often, although, we have a common language, we're divided
Yes.
by it, as Oscar Wilde hinted at, and it seems that our values and our cultures are very different. How do you find yourself at home there?
There's such a thing as being Anglo-American, I think. I mean, which is different, by the way, from being British-American or English-American. You can be Italian-American. The word exists. Jewish-American, the word exists. African-American, the term exists. British and English-American, no, not quite. It's different, but I suppose partly because we were there first.
Simple as that.
Partly because it's our language, common, though, as you say, that's controversial. Partly because most of the people who signed the Declaration of Independence were English gentlemen farmers of one kind or another, and the moral author of the Declaration wasn't a gentleman or a farmer. He was an artisan and a worker and a striver and a radical, Thomas Paine, about whom I wrote a book, Thomas Paine and the Rights of Man.
Okay.
Also, who wrote The Age of Reason, which, just to bring us back,
Sure.
was the first popular book to say that the Bible was man-made and fictitious.
Okay, I'm going through God is Not Great in French, but also you've done a piece in Newsweek about the Pope's denial problem, and you feel, I mean, just being very sort of actual now and getting right to the point of the story
Indeed.
that's very big at the moment. Is the Pope wrong to bring back the bishops that were excommunicated into the Church?
I think the Pope must have realized in the last couple of weeks that he made a hideous mistake in preferring unity with this expelled and derided and tiny, unrepresentative faction to any concept of the dignity of the Church. Not that that's my problem particularly, but one thing that you could have said since the Second Vatican Council is the Church had made a good faith attempt to right the wrongs that it had inflicted on the Jewish people in the past, that it had admitted this and sought to redress it. Or to throw all that out just to reconcile with this crackpot sect that doesn't just say that the Jews, all of them, killed Christ, and every Jew is guilty eternally, not just collectively responsible, but collectively guilty. Not only that, but it says that the United States organized the attack upon itself on September the 11th, 2001. Ludicrous, paranoid, 10th-rate, neo-fascist babble. What's the Pope doing with these people? Dans cette galère.
Christopher
He
Hitchens.
condemns himself, I think, and I think it may be the thing he's most remembered for.
I'm afraid we've run out of time, but just to remind everyone again, the book God is Not Great, out now in French, of course available in English, and has been for a number of years. Christopher, thank you very much for joining us here on France
It's
24.
very good of you to have me.
Pleasure to have you.
Appreciate it.
And thank you for joining us too. Stay with us.